I knew 𝐸℉𝐸℉ would be there. Everybody said he'd been held back once, maybe even twice, but he still ruled the middle school halls like a warden himself. He had this scar under his left eye, a voice like gravel, and he smelled like motor oil and body odor, somehow even through the memories now. A true blue asshole. Everybody has a different picture, but who knows the exact make and model. He'd roughed me up at a birthday party 2 summers back. I'd been invited by association. My cousin Caleb was friends with his cousin Derek, and all the kids in our town blurred together once you got past 3rd grade. Austin cornered me in the garage, hit me with a dog leash until I cried. He said it was some kind of joke, said I should learn how to take it like a man. I didn't forget. I counted the days like a prisoner, waiting for sentencing. He was a few grades ahead of me, so it was only a matter of time until we were at the same middle school. I'd be in 6th grade when he was in 8th. The first day of 6th grade smelled like sweat, sour milk, and waxed tile. New school, new rules, no recess, lockers that jammed, bells that rang in your soul. All the teachers seemed really tired. It felt like entering a machine, one that was designed to grind the fucking life right out of you. And Austin found me by lunch. He walked past me in the cafeteria line, his elbow knocking my tray halfway off the rail. He didn't even look at me, just turned to one of his butthole buddies and said, "They let special ed 3rd graders in now?" Laughter, and not just his, everybody within 10 feet. I tried to eat quickly, but I dropped half of my sandwich because my hands couldn't stop shaking in the moment. I made the mistake of glancing back. His eyes were already on me. The next few days would get worse. My locker got sharpied with the word twink. Someone stuffed an old lunch meat wad into my jean pocket during gym. And on Thursday, he cornered me in the hall outside the science wing and flicked my ear until it bled. "I missed you," he said to me. "Do you still cry like you used to?" I didn't. And it wasn't like the teachers around didn't know, they just didn't care, or maybe they were even scared of him too. I don't know. You learn early on that some kids get to operate above the rules, and unfortunately, I wasn't one of them. Then came that day in late September. I dropped my binder outside the library. Of course, Austin was there, like always, waiting to ruin something for me. He was laughing before I even bent over to pick up my papers, and I thought he might kick me in the face. But before he could say a word, before he could even get his fingers on me, someone stepped out from the shadows beside the drinking fountain. Tyler Mendoza. That's who stepped out of left goddamn field. This tall and lanky kid with pale skin and weird proportions. He had this mop of black hair and always wore a beat-up windbreaker with a hole in the armpit. 8th grade, same as Austin. But nobody really ever talked about Tyler. He wasn't invisible per se. He was more like background static, a rumor in human form, true NPC status. He said nothing when he stepped forward, just blocked Austin's path with his body, his eyes locked straight ahead, cool, calm, and collected. Austin faltered for half a second, confused, then stepped right up to him and tried to puff his chest out. "You lost or something?" Tyler didn't blink. Just that performative shove boys use when they really want to prove they're top dog, but to not get in real trouble, you know? And Tyler didn't move an inch. Then it happened. One second, Austin had his hand out, the next, he was on his knees wheezing. Tyler had slammed him up against a locker so hard, the sound cracked like a baseball bat against aluminum. Then he kneed Austin in the stomach, one clean practiced motion. Austin folded immediately. He hit the floor gasping out loud, and Tyler just stood over him like a god. "Don't touch him again," was all he said. His voice was pretty monotone too. Nobody moved, nobody screamed. A few kids stood frozen behind me. One girl dropped her binder and spilled shit everywhere. A teacher rounded the corner a few seconds later, but Tyler was already walking away, hands in his pockets like he was on his way to lunch. Austin didn't look up, even when the teacher knelt down beside him. They called it a physical altercation, and both boys were sent home. Tyler got 3-day suspension and Austin 2, but he didn't come back for over a week, and when he did, he avoided me. And not just me, everybody. That cocky swagger, the barking laughter, the constant roaming between classes, like he owned the place, it was all gone. He kept to himself, never sat at the same table twice, got really weird and finicky. It was actually kind of fun to watch. I wasn't afraid anymore. Not because I was now brave or something, but because somebody bigger and stranger had finally stepped in, and nobody really understood why. Just a random act of nature, probably pity if I'm being honest. Maybe he'd even been bullied growing up too. Rumors would swirl. People said Tyler had done it because Austin called him a slur once in the locker room. Some said Tyler's brother had gone missing a few years back and Austin knew something about it. One kid claimed Tyler practiced karate in his backyard every night like some kind of psycho. But the rumor that stuck, the one that whispered in gym class, scrawled in Sharpie behind the bleachers, was that Austin had bullied Tyler's older brother until the kid had taken his own life. Tyler and I never talked. He wasn't really the kind of person who made friends, but he walked past me in the hallway a few days later, paused and gave me this single nod, like he was acknowledging me for the first time. And maybe the last. Because by Thanksgiving, he was gone. No announcement, no farewell. His locker emptied up sometime over the weekend, and by Monday, a kid named Omar had taken his space in homeroom, and nobody was really saying anything about it. I asked one teacher where he'd gone to. She blinked at me like I'd asked her if a serial killer or something, then mumbled a mouthful about family stuff and a transfer to Tucson. It was the weirdest reaction, and I still don't fully understand it. Austin never fully returned to form. He didn't stop being cruel exactly, but he was a lot more cautious now. He picked targets a lot more carefully, whispered insults instead of yelling them, and he never touched me again. I made it to 7th grade, then 8th, and I don't think I said Tyler's name out loud for 2 years, worried I might summon him back. One night after graduation, I was riding home with my dad in his truck. We passed this gas station out near the edge of town. A guy was standing there in the dark, smoking, black hoodie, long arms, hair hanging down over his face. Just this silhouette. I swear to God it was Tyler. When I looked back again, he was gone. Now I'm older. I actually teach 6th grade in a town just like the one I grew up in, and every single year, there's a kid who shows up a little too quiet, with hollow eyes and bruises that he won't explain. And every year, there's another kid who acts like he's the king and thinks the rules don't apply to him. And every year, I think about what it took to break Austin Bodle. It was 6th grade when I had Mr. Delroy for homeroom and science class. He looked like somebody who'd been old since his birth. Dry lips, flaky knuckles, brown spots on his scalp. He wore that same brown corduroy jacket every single day, even in May, and he walked the halls like he was being punished. Hell, he could really barely walk at all. Nobody really liked Mr. Delroy, not even the other teachers, but no one outright hated him either, I guess. And I guess that was the thing. He wasn't mean, he just kind of made your skin crawl. He had a way of whispering instructions that felt like he was only talking to you, even when it was a class-wide announcement. He'd mark up on your test with this red pen, little dots instead of X's, almost like he was tracking you instead of grading you. He didn't raise his voice, he didn't crack jokes, didn't smile. Total weirdo. There were rumors, of course, because it's school, there always is. Some kids said he lived in his classroom. Others said that he'd been a high school teacher who got demoted after something happened, though nobody ever knew what that something was. I once overheard a janitor mutter the smell in his supply closet wasn't from mildew. It was from something living in the walls, and I don't really know what that meant. By 2nd quarter, I'd learned to just stay quiet inside his class. He didn't really like questions. He'd pause in the middle of writing on the board if somebody spoke out of turn, then slowly turn around with his mouth open. That really weirded me out, and the tension got so thick some days you could hear some kids grinding their teeth just to wait for the bell. Then there was this stank. It started in February, faint at first, almost like a wet dog, but it got stronger, more sour, something clearly rotting inside the walls. We all smelled it, but Mr. Delroy never even mentioned it. He just got more jittery. He'd flinch when somebody dropped a pencil. One day a girl coughed really loudly and he kicked the trash can so hard it flew across the room. This guy was old school, old as hell, taught from a completely different era. To say his patience was gone was a complete understatement. The worst part was indeed his closet. It was always locked with one of those chunky padlocks, the round kind you see on a storage unit, and none of the teachers seemed to have a key. You'd catch him unlocking it sometimes when he thought nobody was looking, slipping inside quickly and closing it behind him. The day everything happened, the day that they finally found out what he'd been keeping in there, we were working on our dioramas and it was raining outside. Then we heard this strange sound. It almost sounded like scratching. The scratching wasn't loud, but it was out of place, and everybody in the room looked up, but Mr. Delroy didn't. He was hunched over his desk grading something with his little red dot system. His hand paused mid-mark and pen then hovered like he was waiting for the sound to go away, and I remember he got visibly agitated. Nobody said anything. I think we were all waiting for somebody else to speak up, and then Alex did. He sat 2 rows from the closet, always came off tough. Perfect kid for the job, I guess. He leaned sideways, squinting at the tall door. Mr. Delroy, he said, I'm pretty sure something's moving in there. Delroy didn't even lift his head. Focus on your project. The smell was a lot stronger today too, like meat left out in the sun. I had to keep wiping my nose on my sleeve because it was making my eyes water. The scratching would come again, faster now. A pause and then a few rapid scratches, a thud, and we all jumped. Alex stood up. There's something alive in there, Mr. Delroy. That's when he stood up. He slammed his chair into the wall behind the desk and stormed around to where Alex sat, put a hand on his rising shoulder, then forced him back to his desk. Sit down. His voice was flat but loud, and I couldn't tell if he was pissed or full of adrenaline. Alex immediately sat, and I could see his ears turning red. Mr. Delroy then walked to the closet, pulled the padlock key from around his neck, and unlocked the door. He stepped inside and pulled the door shut behind him. A few seconds later, everything went still. Then we heard him talking, not yelling, not whispering, just this steady murmur, like he was trying to calm something down. You couldn't quite make out any words, but it didn't sound like English. And then he started singing, saying weird words. It was German maybe, or Polish. Either way, it was super creepy. We sat frozen, unsure whether to run, stay, or cry. And I remember my classmate Katie silently mouthing the word "what" over and over again. That's when Alex moved. He stood up again and walked straight toward the closet and opened it up. What we saw lasted maybe 3 seconds. The light was dim, but it was enough to see a small metal cage and a rolling cart. There was something inside the cage, furred, hunched, and breathing fast. It looked like a raccoon at first, but there was something really off about it. Tubes running into the cage, leading to a small box with blinking lights and wires. And there was blood all on the tiles. Mr. Delroy turned. His eyes were wide now, pupils blown out like deer in headlights. He shouted something in a language none of us understood and then lunged toward Alex. We all screamed. Katie threw her diorama and ran. Chairs toppled. Somebody knocked over the fish tank. I followed my instincts and bolted for the door, but Mr. Delroy had already slammed the closet shut again and stood in front of it, breathing hard, arms out. No one is leaving this room, he said. His lips were twitching like he couldn't decide whether to scream or cry. Listen, what you saw is part of my science demonstration. The school approved of it. Nobody believed that. Alex had his back against the wall now, and his voice cracked. You're keeping an animal in there. What? That thing, what is it? You kids don't understand. It's not dangerous. It's part of this neurological behavior study. It's contained. He looked over at the door like he wanted to leave, but he knew he couldn't. The lights flickered again, and somewhere outside, I heard the sound of the vice principal's walkie-talkie crackle. Katie, smart as hell, had called the front office admin from her cell phone. Within minutes, the hallway filled up with staff, and somebody must have called the police. When they finally pried Mr. Delroy away from the closet door and opened it up again, the cage was still rattling back and forth on the cart, but the thing inside had escaped. One of the vents in the ceiling was open, and the critter was now long gone. The police searched the room, the vents, even pulled apart some of the floor. The janitor said the smell had lingered for a week, even after they scrubbed the closet down with bleach and ammonia. The school told the parents it was some kind of misunderstanding. Unauthorized lab materials. No further comment. Mr. Delroy was gone the following Monday. We had a long-term sub for the rest of the year, Mrs. Woodbridge, I think, who smelled like cat piss and cried when the projector didn't work. She never even opened up that closet once. None of us really talked about what we saw, not in class, not to our parents, and I think we were all afraid it would make it a little more real. But the rumors, like they do, continued to spread. Some said Mr. Delroy had been keeping roadkill in there for dissection. Others said it was a kind of lab-grown hybrid animal, a spliced-up science project from some university that paid him under the table to house it. Somebody swore they'd seen it again, crawling through the drainage ditch behind the track field, dragging part of the cage behind it. Now, for obvious reasons, I didn't believe most of it, but I'll tell you what I do know for sure. There was indeed something alive in that closet, something caged, and Mr. Delroy didn't keep it there for class. A few years later, I found this old article about him online, way before he taught at our school. He'd been a professor at a community college upstate. He'd published papers, actual academic stuff on animal behavior, social cognition, and stress response conditioning. One of the papers got pulled after some kind of ethics review too. There wasn't much detail, but one phrase did in fact stick with me. Reactive empathy, threshold manipulation, and isolated specimens. I didn't fully understand what it meant then, and I still don't really, but I think he was trying to build something or break something. Maybe both. Maybe it was just some kind of torture test. Never ended up seeing Delroy again after that, and I don't really want to. It's the first day of school and I'm not really in it. I faked a stomach ache this morning. Nothing dramatic, just this low moan and one long, slow trip to the bathroom while holding my gut. My mom touched my forehead, shrugged, and said she'd just let it slide this time. My dad told me to sweat it out, then handed me the remote before heading off to his construction site. They were both gone by 7:15. It's now 9:40. I'm camped out on the living room floor in a blanket cocoon, halfway through a bowl of dry cereal, watching reruns of Mythbusters. I don't feel guilty. It's weird how a normal weekday can just feel like stolen time. The air conditioner hums like this lazy bee. Outside, the sun's already cranking up the heat. I can hear one of the neighbor's sprinkler clicking to life. Our house feels dim and quiet, almost like it's resting. I love being home alone. There's no noise, no awkward locker conversation, no having to explain why I'm sitting myself out again this year. No Mr. Garnett and his creepy sideburns, asking if I understood the assignment this time. Just me, some off-brand Fruit Loops, and the long stretch of nothing. But around 10:15, something shifted. It started out with this sound, dull and distant, like a car door. Nothing too weird except for it came from the back of the house. We don't have a driveway back there. Just our dead-end alley and this side gate, which we always kept shut. I mute the TV and start listening. No footsteps, no engine. I stand up and peek through the blinds by the kitchen window. Nothing. But then the dog next door starts barking, and not that usual yap. It's that panicked, low-throated bark that means something's not quite right. I don't see anyone. No utility truck, no delivery van. The trash guys came yesterday too. So I tell myself it's nothing, go back to the couch and turn the volume back up. But then a little bit later comes the second noise, and this one's a lot louder. A clank, like metal on metal, like a chain being lifted, dropped it, and then lifted again. I freeze. We don't really have a big house, just a 2-bedroom, 1-story place with thin walls and zero insulation. If somebody's outside, they're not far. I tiptoe down the hallway toward my room, past the family photos and past the laundry door, and crack it open half an inch. And that's when I hear the side gate opening. And not slowly either. It was like somebody yanked it, then let the chain drag behind. There's no wind, there's no reason for it to move on its own, so I crouch low with my mouth dry. I grab my phone from the end table. And of course, it's dead. Battery never charged. It had shut off during my second episode at some point. Now it's just me and whoever the hell just walked into my backyard. I back away from the window as quietly as I can, my heel pressing into the corner where the carpet meets the tile. The air around me feels thicker now, like the house even knows something's wrong, like it was waiting with me. Everything becomes scary all within a second. I crouch and listen. There's a shuffling sound now, slow and deliberate footsteps moving along the side of the house, gravel crunching under a heavy step. They stop near the laundry room. I picture the man standing there just outside, head tilted, maybe checking inside the windows. Then I hear the doorknob rattle, just once. It's locked, thankfully. A beat of silence follows and then 2 hard bangs against the door. I jump, then bite down immediately on my own fist to keep from making any kind of sound. I start crawling down the hallway toward my parents' room. It's the only one with a lock on the inside. The front door's too far. I'd have to pass the laundry room first to get there. I reach their room and slip inside, careful not to bump against the dresser. I push the door shut, soft, and turn the lock with my shaking fingers. Then I hear the sliding glass door. I completely forgot about it. The back patio. We never lock it. I get on the floor and press my ear to the carpet. At first I don't hear anything. Then I hear the unmistakable snick of the slider being pulled open. He's inside. My throat goes dry. My whole body is frozen now, except for my hands, which won't stop trembling. It occurs to me that I could die here, and my eyes immediately fill with tears. I crawl into the closet and shut the door behind me. I wedge shoe boxes between the wall and the door to keep it from swinging open. It's pitch black. I can't see anything. Can barely hear anything over the sound of my own breathing, but I still do hear him. I hear boots on the tile, slow steps across the kitchen floor. Whoever it is, they're not in a hurry, and I think he thinks that nobody's home. I hear a drawer open, maybe the silverware, then another. He's rummaging around. And suddenly I hear a crash, like something heavy getting knocked over. A lamp? Then his footsteps head down the hallway toward my room. I want to scream, but I can't. I just press my hand over my mouth and listen. I can hear him walk in. He's breathing loud now, almost snorting, like he's excited. I hear my closet door creak open, the one in my room. He's checking them all. I curl tighter in my parents' closet, trying not to cry. My whole body hurts from holding still. My legs have gone numb. I hear drawers open, mattress shifting. Then for a long time, there's no sound. I think maybe he's left. Maybe he's realized somebody was home and bailed. Then, 3 feet away, a low, slow knock on the door of my parents' room. Knuckles. 2 taps. He knows. I don't move, I don't breathe, I don't blink. The knob turns, stops, and then turns again. The door handle rattles hard over and over. He slams something against it, maybe a shoulder, maybe a tool, and the whole door shakes, but the lock holds. I hear him curse under his breath, and the knob turns again. He's talking to himself now, muttering and pacing. Silence follows once more, but I know he's still out there. I know he's still waiting. Then I hear something that makes my skin crawl even more. The sound of him sitting down just outside the door, like he's gonna wait me out, like he knows I'm in here and he's got nowhere else to be. I can't take it anymore. I grab my dad's old cordless drill from the floor of the closet. It's heavy, metal, and plugged in. I don't think, I just move. I throw open the door and he scrambles up from the hallway carpet, eyes wide mid-sprint. I swing the drill and it connects with the side of his head. I swing again, but this time the drill bit comes out, opening up a gash along his temple. He stumbles and crashes up against the wall. Blood streaks down the hallway. I don't wait. I just beat him again with a drill. Then I ran through the kitchen barefoot, past the overturned couch and drawers hanging wide open. The front door's still locked. I throw my shoulder into it, undo the latch, then bolt barefoot down the street screaming. I don't look back. I ran until my legs gave out, half a block, then another, barefoot and sobbing, screaming bloody murder in the middle of our street. Mrs. Langley from across the road came out first, phone already in hand. By the time the cops showed up, I was wrapped up in one of her throw blankets, trembling on her couch, stammering about what had just taken place. They found him inside my house still. He'd locked the doors behind him, turned off the AC, unplugged the TV, and when they got there, he was sitting in our kitchen chair, elbows on the table, smiling. It was his house now. No ID, no vehicle, no clear motive, just a backpack full of stolen goods, a pair of gloves and a hunting knife, and a roll of duct tape. Apparently, he'd been watching our house, that much was clear. They pulled a trail cam photo from the alley behind our place, this grainy black and white image of a man crouched low by our fence 2 nights earlier, looking straight into the lens. The cops told my parents it looked like he'd tried the back door before, probably gave up when he saw the porch light on. I don't think they charged him with anything serious, technically. I wasn't harmed, and there was no forced entry, no record of past crimes. He disappeared into some facility for psych eval, and then dropped off the radar after that. It didn't matter though. I wouldn't sleep in that house for 6 weeks. My parents replaced the sliding door, got motion lights, put cameras up in every corner, and my mom cried every night that month. My dad kept a bat by the bed for a year straight. It was a scary time for a few months, and then we all collectively just got over it. Really fucking strange times, man. There were 2 kinds of bathrooms at our school, the normal ones up by the front office and the weird ones in the old wing, past the broken vending machines and the busted water fountain that shot out more air than it actually did water. They were the original install back in the 60s when the school was really small. Deep urinals that went into the floor, yellow plaster and caulking, but the plumbing worked, so there wasn't really any reason to shut them down, I guess. Nobody really used the old bathrooms unless they absolutely had to. The lights would flicker, the urinals smelled like metal and piss. The last stall always had the door ripped off the hinge too. I had never seen anybody walk in until on that Tuesday. Lunch had sucked, I forgot my sandwich, and somebody took the last chocolate milk. I was already pissed off when I pushed open the bathroom door and caught movement out of the corner of my eye. 2 kids were huddled in the far stall. One of them was crouched low, knife in hand, scratching something into the tile. The other stood behind him, watching and whispering. I stopped cold. The one crouching, Troy something, was carving symbols into the floor. Not words, not letters, just shapes, circles, jagged lines, stuff that looked really weird. The other kid, Cameron, was sketching in a spiral notebook. I saw some black ink, pages and pages of it. His eyes then flicked up and met mine, and he smiled at me. "We're almost done," he said, calm as ice. "You can stay if you want to." I didn't move. Then Troy looked up too. His eyes were wide and glassy, like he'd been crying, or maybe he was on drugs. "He's here," Troy whispered. I turned and ran, didn't wash my hands, didn't even think, just bolted out of there like the school was on fire. And that was only the start of it all. I didn't tell anyone right away. Who was I gonna tell? That 2 weird kids were drawing shapes in the bathroom, whispering this creepy stuff? Teachers at our school didn't really want drama. I'd pipe up and they'd tell me it was some kind of misunderstanding, I'm sure of it. But I couldn't shake the whole thing. That night I kept picturing that notebook. It was burned into my brain. So the next day I avoided that wing completely, even avoided parts of campus where I might run into those 2 clowns. But Cameron didn't avoid me. "See you soon," he said to me. By lunch I was sweating. I didn't eat, I didn't talk, I just sat there with my sandwich untouched, watching the clock and thinking about that bathroom, wondering what they'd been doing and why they let me see. My last period I'd cracked completely. I told Ms. Everman that I needed to use the restroom and headed for the front office bathrooms. But Halfway down the main hallway, I stopped. I still could not stop thinking about what I'd seen yesterday, and I had this weird sick feeling that if I didn't go back and check, and actually check, I might miss out on something. It was this weird moment of high school FOMO, you know? So I turned around and walked the other direction, back toward the old wing. The lights were buzzing overhead. I reached the bathroom door and hesitated, then pushed it open. Empty. The symbol was still there though. Troy had finished it, I guess. The carving spread out from the far stall in this uneven circle, jagged, spiraled, and chaotic. Just looking at it gave me this weird feeling. And then, off in the corner knees to chest was Cameron. He looked up when I entered and smiled at me. "I was hoping you'd come back here," he said, almost like he was in a fog. I turned to leave, but the door wouldn't open this time. He hadn't locked it, he was holding it shut with this black cord wrapped around the knob and then tied to the handicap bar beside him. He snatched the cord and pulled it to where I couldn't leave. "What do you want?" I asked him. Cameron stood slowly, like a snake uncoiling. "It's not about what I want, it's about him." Then I saw it, his hands, ink smeared across his palms and his arms, like he'd been writing on himself entirely, and that notebook was open on the sink, pages fluttering. "You're part of it now," he said to me. I backed into the stall beside the carved one, not really sure what else to do. I didn't see anything. I won't tell, I swear." "Oh, you'll tell," he whispered. "But it won't matter. Troy already told, and Troy's gone now." I noticed Troy's backpack in the corner, and beside it something darker, not blood exactly, but something thick and black, smudged like paint or ink. I felt my stomach twist and I lunged back toward the door. Cameron didn't even try to stop me, just watched as I struggled with that cord, finally got it loose and yanked open the door and sprinted down the hallway. I didn't stop running until I reached the counselor's office, and of course, they didn't believe me, but they did find the symbol and the notebook. Whatever that dark smear was near Troy's bag, it got sent off for some kind of testing, I guess, or at least that was the rumor anyway. I never heard about any results and never got even told what it might have been. And Troy didn't come back to school, ever. Cameron? He spent the rest of the year at behavioral center 2 counties over. His parents said he'd been overstimulated by something, said he got too deep into role-playing this game online, said he'd been having delusions. But nobody ever explained why he drew those symbols or why he said, "He's here," whoever the hell he was even talking about. They cleaned the bathroom the next day, scrubbed the tiles, repainted the stall, even replaced the door that had been ripped off its hinges since I started 6th grade. So it looked normal again, I guess. But to me, it wasn't. You could still see the faint outline of the carving under the polished floor. The janitor stopped cleaning that wing after dark too. And of course, in typical fashion, a rumor went around that one of them had gotten sick while mopping the floor. The word was that everybody that entered that bathroom would get violently ill and puked in the sink the second they entered. But none of the teachers really talked about it, not once, and the school didn't send out any kind of announcement, didn't even hold some kind of assembly. They called it this disciplinary incident. No other explanation. No picture of Troy, no mention of Cameron either. I heard later from a friend of a friend's older brother that Troy's parents pulled him from school after whatever happened in the stall, that he was never quite right again, started drawing obsessively, wouldn't eat unless the food was in certain patterns, mumbling phrases that didn't sound like English, but of course that could have just been a rumor. Or not. Cameron never came back, and last anybody heard he was still in state care, listed under nonverbal aggressive subtype. I transferred to Westside High School the second week of my sophomore year. My dad got this new job, so we packed up and moved 4 hours north into August, just in time for me to start fresh at a school where I didn't know a single person. Those first few days were a blur of mispronounced names, cafeteria scavenging and trying not to sit in somebody else's spot. It didn't take long to figure out the pecking order. The seniors seemed to run the show. The freshmen clung together like baby ducks, and the juniors acted like they'd seen war. And the sophomores, my group, were invisible unless we were doing something wrong. But there was this one group that stood out amongst everybody, the theater girls. 5 of them, always together, always dressed like they were auditioning for a Tim Burton remake. Long skirts, combat boots, a heavy eyeliner, messy hair that somehow looked perfect. They moved in formation, always at the edge of the crowd, like wolves watching the herd. Everybody called them the witch bitches behind their back, but nobody actually said it to their face. I didn't even think they noticed me. I kept my head down, stayed quiet, and focused on getting through the day without screwing anything up. But by Thursday, I caught one of them staring at me in the hallway, the tallest one, Lena. I later found out she had watched me from the water fountain, chewing her nail. Her eyes were faded, like they were on low battery settings or something. She didn't smile and she didn't look away. At lunch, a folded piece of paper landed in my tray. I looked around, but nobody was near, and I unfolded it. "We want to see inside your head," is what it said. No name, no signature. I threw it away. The next day, the same girl brushed past me near the gym and whispered, "Pretty throat." At first, I thought I misheard her, but then she turned and smiled at me, this wide alien grin that made my skin crawl. Every time I saw Lena, she was watching me, and not in a casual way people do when they're bored or sizing you up. Her eyes tracked me like she was recording me. The other girls weren't really far behind. Nora, Hazel, Morgan, and Elise, they always clustered together in stairwells or beneath the overhangs by the theater building, leaning against the brick with cigarettes they never actually lit. They seemed to dress in layers, lace gloves, torn tights, chokers with those little silver charms. One of them wore a doll key on a ribbon around her neck. Another had her hands stained with charcoal. They never really seemed to talk to anybody else either, but eventually they started showing up near my classes, just standing outside, watching. I'd walk out of algebra and see them standing near the vending machines, arms crossed, one of them murmuring something to another's ear while looking directly at me, and it happened in 3 different buildings. Once, during lunch, I caught Hazel behind me in line. She didn't order anything, just stood there, and when I turned to look at her, she smiled at me. "Let me paint you with your insides," she said. I didn't respond. I just paid for my bagel and walked straight out. I told myself, okay, it's the theater kid being weird. High school performance art, whatever the hell you want to call it. Maybe I reminded them of somebody, I don't know, maybe they needed someone to fixate on. But it would get worse. Little slips of paper started showing up in my locker. They weren't folded like notes, just torn from pages of old plays or books. Each one had a line underlined in red ink. She sang with her eyes open, even as the water filled her lungs. The mask stayed on until the skin grew around it. What do you do with a girl who won't run when you tell her to? Every time I would throw them out. And still, they would keep showing up. Once in my backpack, once inside my history textbook. Then one Friday afternoon, I stayed after school to make up on a quiz. By the time I finished, most of the campus was empty. I took a shortcut through the east wing hallway, planning to cut out near the gym and avoid that long walk around the quad. And that's when I saw them, all 5 girls, standing in this loose semicircle by the bathroom near the locker rooms, just standing there waiting. The hallway was dead quiet, and their eyes all turned on me at once. I just tried to walk past, nodded, and said hey. Nora immediately stepped in front of me. "We need a favor." "I'm good," I said, but they were all around the same size as me, if not a little bigger, and I thought I was about to get jumped. Morgan moved behind me, and Hazel spoke next. "You don't get a choice." I turned to walk, but Lena had grabbed my wrist. "Come with us," she said. "No." She squeezed and dug her long fingernails into my skin, right between my veins. "Please don't make this a thing," she whispered. I pulled free and ran. They didn't chase me, but I didn't stop running until I hit the faculty parking lot, and I didn't really breathe right until I was on the late bus, pressed up against the window, heart jackhammering. Told myself I would never allow myself in a situation like that again. I started taking different hallways, different doors. I ate lunch outside the counselor's office for a week and told them it was for anxiety, and I guess I really wasn't lying. The girls never spoke to me again, never touched me, never left another note, but they made sure that I always saw them, always in my periphery, always watching. Lena winked at me once in the bathroom mirror, and I left without washing my hands. Another time I caught Nora sitting outside the nurse's office, carving something into her thigh with this safety pin. When she saw me looking, she dug the whole pin into her flesh and didn't even make a sound. A few months later, one of them actually disappeared, Hazel. Just gone, no missing person poster, no announcements, no candlelight vigil. She just stopped coming to class. There was this brief PSA around town to keep an eye out for her, but I never saw anything like some kind of official missing persons poster. Somebody told me she transferred, another kid said that she'd been institutionalized. The rest of the group didn't even act like they noticed. Their numbers seemed to shrink now, but their smiles never did. I figured she finally just got sick of it, ran away. By junior year, I stopped seeing them altogether. Lena had dropped out, Nora had moved away. Morgan got expelled for lighting a paper towel dispenser on fire in the girls' locker room. Only Elise remained now. I passed her once in senior year. She was sitting alone under the bleachers, staring up at the rafters. She seemed out of it and was usually like that anytime I saw her. Now I'm older and 2 towns over. I manage a floral shop and lock the back door every time the sun goes down. Sometimes teen girls would come up and buy flowers or craft stuff, and they remind me of those theater girls. And I often found myself wondering if they're using any of my flowers for any of their weird fucking spells. I knew he'd be in my class again. All summer I tried to lie to myself. Maybe he got placed inside a behavioral unit. Maybe this district finally grew a spine. But when the rosters dropped the last week of July, there he was, enrolling. 12 years old, emotionally disturbed, removed twice the year before, once for threatening a girl with a pencil, once for choking another kid with his backpack strap during indoor recess. No charges were filed either time. He's got a plan, they said. He's being monitored, they said. Monitored. Like that ever really meant anything. It's August 2021, first full week back to in-person learning after COVID. The kids are wild-eyed, masked or not. They've forgotten how to sit still, and most of them want to be back. Ian doesn't. Day one, he walks in and makes eye contact with me like we picking up right where we left off. "Still here, huh?" he says, sitting down. Doesn't even take out a pencil, doesn't ask for a syllabus, just leans back, spreads his legs, eyes forward, watching me. I tell myself I need to be patient. Trauma, stress, pandemic. I've read all the literature, but nothing in the PD slides prepared me for Ian. Day 2, he takes a pair of safety scissors at his desk and begins tapping the blade against his leg. "Just bored," he says when I approach him. Day 3, he turns in a writing prompt about my favorite vacation, detailing a dream he had about suffocating his brother in a laundry basket and hiding the body under his trampoline. I send him to the counselor. She sends him back an hour later with a note that says, "Parent contacted, keeping close eyes on, let me know if escalates." He escalates, quietly and subtly, the way kids like Ian know how to do it. He whispers things to girls in front of him, pokes holes in his math worksheets, refuses to wear a mask, sharpens his pencil until it's a toothpick, asks if he can keep the shavings. All I can think is every time I stand in front of the board is, what will it take this time? A scream, a bruise, blood? It happened on a Thursday, and by then the warnings had stacked up like kindling. I sent 4 incident reports in 5 days. The counselors marked him on this watch list. The principal told me to keep things structured and calm. Everybody knew Ian was a risk, but no one wanted to be the one who said no. That morning, he comes in humming. Same note over and over, like a skipping record. He sits down and stares at the whiteboard and didn't stop humming, even when I started a lesson. I should have, set him out right then. I know that now, but I didn't. It was second period, science. We were doing a small group project. Build a simple electric circuit with a light bulb and a switch. I'd run this lab a dozen times over the years. It's safe, hands-on, and quiet. Ian was working with Kendra. Kendra was new to the school, smart, shy, and always wore a hoodie with sleeves pulled down over her hands. I paired her with Ian because I didn't want him with any of the boys. Far too much friction. They sat at the far end of the table, barely speaking. Kendra was handling the wires. Ian was just watching. I think 15 minutes in, I noticed them arguing. Kendra was gesturing toward the switch, and they'd wired it up wrong, and Ian wouldn't look at her. I started walking over, and that's when it happened. He stood up so fast his chair skidded back, pulled the scissors from his hoodie pocket, and not the classroom scissors. These were sharper and a lot more pointed. It didn't even register at first, and then I saw it. He'd stabbed Kendra in the leg, just jabbed it downward like he was testing a steak on the grill. She screamed and knocked over the battery pack, and blood had pooled almost instantly on the floor beneath her chair. I shouted his name and moved. He turned to me, smiling, proud of his handiwork. And then he lunged again. I raised up my hand off instinct and felt the blade drive into the webbing between my thumb and index finger. White-hot pain. I shoved him backward. He tripped over the stool and fell, and the scissors clattered across the tile. Kids screamed, another one ran into the hallway, another one threw up. I hit the fire alarm by the door and dropped to my knees, trying to put pressure on Kendra's leg. She was sobbing and rocking, clutching the table leg. Ian lay on the floor blinking, his smile now gone. He didn't run, he didn't fight, he just started crying. Security came in fast, and so did the nurse and the cops and then the fire department. They cuffed him right there on the floor. I remember how small he looked, like a third grader who'd just been caught breaking open a window. Blood on his fingers, on his shoelaces. Mine too. They put me on paid leave effective immediately, and that's what they call it when they don't want you around anymore, but also don't want to get sued. I sat at home with stitches in my hand, a tightness in my chest that I thought might be a heart attack, and no answers from my district. Kendra survived. The blade missed the artery by an inch. She's in therapy now. Her parents threatened to sue, then they went quiet. Ian was taken away in a cruiser. No cuffs, just a blanket around his shoulder, and a detective who wouldn't make eye contact with me as they passed. Nobody ever told us where he went after that. The rumor was that he was placed in some kind of juvenile psychiatric hold, but those only last 72 hours unless a judge gets involved, and no one in that building was willing to push paperwork fast enough. The district didn't even call it an attack, they called it a behavioral escalation. The word stabbing never even appeared in the incident report. The news never picked it up. No press, no coverage because nobody wanted the headline. Student injures classmate and teachers day into school year. Not after COVID, not after the budget talks, not with enrollment super down. So they rewrote it. And by the time I came back a few weeks later, I found a completely different class roster, a different room, a different student body that had already been forgotten. Except for me. I still have the scar, a long, shallow divot in the muscle between my thumb and finger, and it hurts still all the time. I've taught for 12 years. I've had dozens of kids with IEPs, trauma flags, special circumstances. Most of them just needed help. But every now and again, I end up with a student that needs a lot more than that, and I'm usually afraid of them, just like Ian.